been one thing after another for me. So we are live, TJ.
Hot dog.
Perfect to start right with the food in your mouth. Thank you, everyone who certainly hasn't joined our live yet, but will. We will get to you in a moment. This is the Left Wing Live, and we'll be chatting. We'll be talking things today. A comment we'll just jump right into it here, TJ, because we were just discussing before I hit this live button here, and we're going to be discussing this more coming up. Due to there being a topic about it on our normal left-wing show. Oh, Voidcast is here already. He's first.
Voidcast, my dudes.
So thank you for being here, Voidcast. So we're just talking about, we're going to be discussing this topic tomorrow, so I don't want to get too much into it. But it's such a big topic. We're probably going to make multiple videos about it tomorrow. The immigration bill slash Israel and Ukraine funding bill that has been negotiated, proposed, and swiftly denied by Republicans in Congress has been such a large story. And I said before we hopped on here, I think that this is going to be one of the defining moments of Biden's presidency. TJ, you'd said, I feel like more like Congress and not so Biden. Let me clarify what I said before I let you jump into it. I don't think it's the defining moment. I think Israel is probably going to be the defining moment of his presidency, but I don't know. I would say Obamacare would be the defining thing of Obama's presidency, and this would be like DACA, where it's not the defining thing, but it's one of the the defining policies of the presidency. That's what I was saying. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's And it also depends on what happens with it, because it's looking like it's just going to crash and burn. It's not going to go anywhere. And I hate to say it, like every once in a while, the Democrats will do something that actually works, even though I hate it. A good example of this is, you remember when Chuck Schumer said this before the 2016 election, and they really implemented it in 2020. And they said that, for every working class person we lose for the Democratic Party, we're going to gain 2 people in the suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended up biting them in the ass in 2016. And they kept going with this plan after it, crushed them. And I said, man, why are you doing this? And it worked like a charm in 2020. Like it worked so great. And I hate that it did, but I got to give him props. And so this thing with Biden is, the problem with this whole border issue is that the Republicans always have the same stance. Like they're pretty consistent with the border. Close it down, let as few people in as possible. And the Democrats aren't radically different from that. It's just like, we'll do the same thing, but be nicer about it. So when the Republicans get on TV every day and saying the border is being overrun, it's an invasion, the Democrats kind of agree. And so I always wanted the Democrats to do something that makes sense. They always talk about comprehensive immigration reform, which is true. That's necessary. But, let people in, make it an easy process for them to work, and stop with this nonsense of pretending people who are traveling here to pick strawberries or, international jewel thieves or something. Like that's how they act. But instead, they say, well, we're going to, go along with this deal to kind of concede the fact that the Republicans are right and put a bunch more security and a bunch of regulations and limiting the people we process. And basically you're saying the Republicans are correct about everything they say. And so I get Biden's strategy here, which is like, make the Republicans say, oh, we actually don't want that. We want things to be bad, which is what they're doing. And it might work. I hate that it might work, but it might. And it's I get it, but I hate it. That's how I see it.
So I'm interested in the political strategy of this. And again, for our viewers, we're going to be discussing this when we record our show tomorrow. So there's going to be, if not one, multiple full episodes of the Left Wing on this subject, because it is a massive, massive bill and a massive political story. But we're just going to talk, shoot the shit about it right now, because, again, we're going to have more to say about this than we can possibly put out there in content. But I'm interested in the political strategy here, because to me, it's dumb. It's dumb. I think the Democrats' border strategy has always been dumb. I think it massively overestimates the hatred of immigrants in this country, because it doesn't make any sense.
No.
There is no progressive immigration party. Like, there is right wing and there is Nazis. That is what we're at here. And I'm not really joking about
You're
this.
not, no.
I'm not. It is the most far right, I'll put it this way, let me slow down. The compromise position that Biden has offered to the Republicans is basically just a wish list of everything the Republicans could possibly want. Like, if the Republicans had a trifecta, what Biden proposed as policy is what they would pass, essentially. Maybe a little bit more, but, like, it's incredible how they've been given everything they want. And I'm not exaggerating here. Let me read this to you. Amy Fisher, director of refugee and migrant rights for Amnesty International USA, said in a statement calling the proposed policies, quote, draconian and antithetical to human rights. Human Rights Watch is calling this antithetical to human rights. I don't know how much more far right-wing you can get than that, and still they're declining to pass it. Even though they probably want it, they just
definitely want it.
They want to make their strategy, the far right Republican strategy, I'd say, the level heads like Mitch McConnell, are like, hey, we should probably pass this bill. This is awesome. And then the Michael Johnson's his name, right?
Mike Johnson,
The Michael Johnsons of the world are like, no, this is dead on arrival. This Republican wet dream of an immigration bill is dead on arrival, and they're literally just saying like it's to fuck with Biden. That's what they're saying. It's not even like they're hiding it. That's coming out of their mouths.
Yeah, Johnson wants this too. Every Republican, in Capitol Hill would love to have this bill passed if it weren't 2024. I mean, that's true. Like and what's great though is that Trump is saying it too. Trump is saying Trump is so dumb that he doesn't mind saying it out loud. And this is a bit. Did you see that? There's this. I can't remember the name of the Republican. He's like bald and got a goatee. He looks like a comic book villain. But he was a Republican congressman. He's really mad at Trump for not accepting this bill, which is really funny to see because there's a decent amount, like more than I would have guessed, of Republicans who apparently are kind of principled on this. And they said, this is not cool. This is a good bill. We actually do, credit where credit's due, they have the courage of their convictions. They think the border is a problem, and this is a way to solve it. And they don't think it's right that Donald Trump is holding off on this just to help himself. And a few of them are brave enough to say,
Shocker, TJ.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know. And so I wish I could remember this guy's name, but I saw a video of him talking, I believe it was yesterday, and he was saying that all the stuff Trump is saying is wrong because Trump's argument is that we don't need this border bill because all Biden has to do is write an executive order to close down the border and the problem is solved. And the guy says, that is fucking insane. What is Trump talking about? He says, you know what? Donald Trump was president 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. He never did that. He never one time wrote down a piece of paper, border is closed. Why not? Because he can't do it. That's why. And so the guy, he said that on the floor of Congress, of the House. And I was like, yeah, good for this guy. I'm sure he's a demon in every other sense, but it was him. Dan Crenshaw, I heard him criticize this. Some other guy, I can't think of his name, but I'm surprised to see that there's onesies and twosies saying, what the hell are we doing here? It's pretty fun.
It is. And Voidcast just said you made a great fucking point, TJ.
Which one? I'm used to it. But
yeah, I'm assuming he meant the Trump didn't do this point. Which... But tell us which point there, Voidcast. I actually don't know which one of you is talking, but both of you. I'm thankful for the level-headed lefties too. I think it's Ethan. So he also asked to give the deets on what's in this bill. So we'll definitely be covering this more in our official video on the left wing. But to just give a very brief overview of what's in this bill. So first of all, it's like a multi-bus bill. Essentially Republicans said, hey, we'll give you funding for Ukraine and Israel if you give us handling the border crisis, right? And that is how this bill came to be. And on the Israel and Ukraine, it's just funding money. I haven't really gotten into that, but good for Ukraine, shit for Israel. This is just, it's a lose-lose situation, essentially, for me. But we're negotiating against ourselves. But essentially what's in the immigration bill, emergency border restrictions that set, they will shut down the border if we pass a certain amount of illegal immigrants crossing, which doesn't really make sense in practice, because how can we tell, like, in media res how many illegal immigrants are crossing if that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, what it is that it's not necessarily illegal immigrants. It's just immigrants, honestly, because like you said,
I mean, in the board, again, it could be different, but in the CNN article I'm reading, it says once illegal border crossings reach a certain threshold.
So what it is that so they don't know, so they have to hold them, and like say they come in and they claim asylum.
Mm-hmm.
Now we don't know if that's a legal claim or not, and so you get a court date to come back for your asylum trial to judge if you're here illegally or not, or they can move you out.
The crossing is still legal though. Like, that's a legal crossing as long as you say I claim asylum, even if it's not illegal, like a claim. The crossing itself wasn't breaking a law.
Right, but you're not an illegal immigrant at that point. Like you say, you're not until the court decides that you are. So what they had been doing is, what you do in any civil offense, like a traffic ticket or whatever, is like, okay, here's your court date. Come back for court, and then we'll decide if you can stay or not. And so Republicans are mad about that because, what if they don't come back and they got to go find them and everything? So this will have them put them in holding now. Basically, you're in jail until your court date occurs. Now, once they have, it's either 5,000 or 7,500. Like, there's some, like, those two numbers I remember are in this bill, because Republicans kept saying that they're going to allow in 5,000 illegals every day. But that's not necessarily what it says. It's like once it reaches 5,000 that they have, like, in jail, then they close down the border for that day. But that almost never happens. Like 5,000 every single day that you're holding in jail. Like some people, they're legitimate crossers. So yeah, like that's where the number comes from. And when they reach that max to hold them off. So Republicans are going to keep saying that they're going to let people flood in, but no, this actually puts them in jail essentially for crossing over the border.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess.
I guess.
I mean, it explains what the actual mechanism is. The other things it does, it makes major changes to asylum in general, which parts of this I like. Like, they are providing more resources to the border and to asylum processing, which in general is a good thing. And if it was just that, I'd be like, okay, we cool with that. And honestly, this is the biggest point that I'm like, Republicans are fucking dumb, because if you're worried about all these crossings past this, if Trump takes the presidency, cool, you can pass more. You're also going to have the Senate probably if Trump wins the presidency.
Yeah,
you can always do more, and you can provide billions of dollars in funding to the border right now. There's no reason not to do this, and it continues the policy, like the Remain in Mexico policies, like that style of policy for the asylum seekers. What else does it do? It immediately makes them eligible for work permits, which just makes fucking sense if they're accepted into asylum. I didn't know that wasn't the case. Like,
I didn't hear that. That's actually a good measure.
That's a good one that Republicans are pissed about.
Of course.
But, like, I don't even understand the conservative. They legally sought asylum. They got approved by a court. They are a legal immigrant, and you're giving them a permit to work. How is that not everything a Republican could want?
Because Republicans are lying when they say, we don't mind immigration, we just don't want illegal immigration. No, they don't want immigration at all. Hey, have you caught, man? Did you ever see, there was this clip, I think it was The Good Liars, and they were asking these random people at Trump rallies what they thought about illegal immigration. And he would like bait them and say, we don't mind immigration. No, immigration is great. We just don't like when people do it the wrong way. And he says, okay, well, I'm backing this measure to make immigration easier, to like lessen, like, no, we don't want that. Okay, wait a minute. Well, then it would be legal immigration, but no, because they don't actually want legal immigration either.
Yep.
So yeah, they're lying about it. Another stipulation in the bill that I remember that's also very funny, like everything else in this, is that Biden has like set aside a shitload of cash for Border Patrol. And so this has made it funny because normally Border Patrol is in lockstep with the Republican Party, but now every Border Patrol agent or Border Patrol like a union officer or like someone in charge, they're like, this bill's great. This bill's fantastic. And they're Republicans have to argue against the Border Patrol. It's hilarious. It's really funny to watch.
It's funny. Ethan said they're going to take all the jobs, and like and he said it was the point about Trump not doing it. That was a good point. But I said this on Threads, and it did not go viral. But I think this take deserved to.
It deserved it. We've all been there, John. We've all been there.
Immigration is to Republicans what abortion is to Democrats. They're never going to actually do anything about it like they claim to, and they only use it as a scare tactic to fundraise and get out the vote. And it's so blindingly clear right now because everything you just said is correct. They have it in their grasp. Biden is giving it to them. Billions of dollars for the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol is asking them to take it. There's restrictions on amnesty. There's restrictions on everything. It's basically the same policies Trump had, but like even farther right somehow. And they're not taking it for political reasons because this was never about immigration. It was always about a political weapon that they could wield. And they're being called out, like they're being given the thing, and they're like, we would literally rather not pass this into law. I would be pissed if I'm a Republican right now. I'm pissed at party leadership. Like genuinely, I'm fuming as a human and progressive. It's good as that this doesn't pass. And if less money for Ukraine is what I have to pay for that, I'm not crying about it.
Yeah.
But like, and plus I also get less money for Israel. So honestly, I'm on team Michael Johnson here. Like just like the longer this doesn't pass, the happier I am because it's very bad for me overall. But like, it's an embarrassment on both sides.
Yeah, it depends on what kind of Republican you are. Because if you're a smart Republican, that's how you would react. You're like, okay, but a lot of them aren't that bright. And I mean, they'll say, well, no, they believe the line that they hear from Trump that this is a bad bill, and they just roll with it. You mentioned how this isn't just a border bill, it's also an Israel-Ukraine bill. Can I say that ever since I must have been in 7th or 8th grade, I have hated this. I hate that bills are rolled together like this. It just drives me insane. I remember sitting there and like in my civics or history class, whatever, like it was Bill Clinton. They were talking about some bill that Bill Clinton had. Mm-hmm. And they mentioned how, there's 5 or 6 projects in this bill. And I was like, why? Why? What does one have to do with the other? And then like my teacher told me, he's like, well, if you're in Congress, you need to work in coalitions. And so if you want people to support your measure, you need to support theirs. One, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. And I was like, that's stupid. Like that. Bills should be clean. Like there should be a rule that's like bills should only apply to one thing at one time. I don't know how you would word that, but like the fact that the money for supporting 2 international conflicts is wrapped up in our border, insanity. I hate that.
It is really dumb, and how do I put this? There are better ways to do the thing that people claim this is the reason we do it for. Like, if you want a tit-for-tat exchange, okay, set up a mechanism where you vote on one bill, and it will only pass if another bill also passes. Keep the bills clean and separate. That way it's not like, oh, there's these poison pills, that's why I didn't vote for it, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
No, there are 2 separate bills that you have votes on that have clauses in them that they need to both pass in order to take effect. That way, you have clear votes on one and clear votes on the other, and we know who supports what. I don't see how that could possibly be worse than the Frankenstein situation that we have right now. This made sense when people were idiots and didn't understand how to operate a government, but I just don't see the possible bureaucratic reasoning behind this. There must be better ways we can figure this out. Ethan said that we can agree. He said that Republicans are goofy as hell, myself included at one point, still working out the kinks. Ethan, I told you, I'm going to turn you into a raging progressive. You're going to be shouting out the Communist Manifesto before we know it. And we'll get you there, Ethan. But we appreciate, on this show, for our viewers, we like to, we talk a lot of shit and we have a lot of fun. But when we talk with like Republicans. I mean, you don't so much, but when I talk with Republicans, you just don't do it. When I talk with Republicans and conservatives, though, like it's an open mind. Like I'm not ever. If I was talking with a Republican conservative, I wouldn't be shit talking them to their face. I would be trying to understand, and that is the approach that I take with it. And Ethan will attest, like that's the conversations I've had with him, and that's how you actually change minds, people. Like if you want to have the conversation, TJ basically says, I don't want to have the conversation, and that's perfectly valid. But if you want to be someone who talks online with conservatives, don't be yelling at them, don't be name calling. Try and hear them out. Try and understand. At the very least, you're gonna get some knowledge as to how their brain ticks and how to change your own messaging. But anyway, I wanted to move off this topic.
Well, wait.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to add some of that. So. It's not that I won't talk to Republicans or conservatives. It's not precisely true. It's that I'm not going to debate them online. That is something I don't do, because I'm of the mind that, and personal experience has taught me that the only way to actually have any hope of changing someone's mind, and that's usually not my goal either, because people took years, sometimes decades, to get to the position in which they find themselves. You're not going to change their mind by showing them one thing. Like, no matter how strongly you believe, how great your evidence is, that's not how human psychology works. But the only possible success you will have is if the person already respects your opinion. That's the most important thing. If the person thinks you're an absolute moron, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. They're not going to listen. They're going to make fun of you. And so I noticed back in the Facebook days, when we were arguing on message boards and stuff, that the only success I ever had was in personal messages, back and forth when you're not performing for somebody.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that, either of you, because, I've changed my mind on stuff too, that's going to go forward, is when they know that you're not dunking on them for performance, which is like the only thing I do in in those situations when I did. So I realized it wasn't really effective unless I'm doing it simply for the entertainment. But if it's someone that I actually am interested in how they're moving forward, personal conversations are the only way. Because like you said, if you respect them and they respect you, you can actually move forward with that. So it's not that I don't talk to them at all. It's just that I don't do performative shows with it.
That is fair. And also what I thought you did, if I misrepresented that, my apologies. But no, that
well, for the audience then.
Yes, for the audience, of course. And speaking of the audience, definitely thank you for being here. We're doing this on Wednesdays now at 6 o'clock every Wednesday. A live opportunity for our audience to talk with us and for us to just have a lower pressure conversation than the usual videos. So very much appreciate everyone who's watching this, and definitely if you're watching this afterwards, which we had quite a few viewers do, definitely catch us next time, Wednesdays at 6 o'clock. And if you, for whatever reason, want to be here but can't at that time, let us know in a comment, and maybe we can do a special live at a time that works for you. Ethan just asked if lives are lower pressure for us. TJ, you want to explain that?
I find lives to be a lot easier than the regular show, like 1,000 times easier, because my favorite parts of the regular show are the banter and the back and forth thing, like the actual loading the round in the chamber and getting ready and presenting the news. It just drags for me. And it's only 15 seconds, and I hate every second of it. But I like when we jump in and start just, going back and forth. That's my favorite part. So for me, it feels like a lot less pressure. I was surprised. I would have said that a year ago. I would have thought this would have been a lot more pressure, that I'd say something incorrect on the live, but I don't feel it at all once the camera starts rolling.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing, but it's like the opposite of what you'd expect. Is that for when I know it's being recorded and put out into an episode, I'm constantly thinking about how is this conversation going to flow? How is it going to operate with the algorithm? Are we going to be able to wrap this up within the amount of time we usually take for the videos? Did everyone get their say in? And I'm constantly worrying about that. Whereas when I do this, it's just I'm just talking shit with my buddy about the news.
I like it a lot better.
And if we want to talk for an hour about a single topic, we can do that. If we want it to be a 5-minute, just hey, I want to talk about this real quick, we can do that. We don't have to kind of put it into the box, which is why for me it's less pressure. I always talk like no one's watching. Well, I guess that's not. I talk here like no one's watching. On the episodes, I talk like I'm building a product. Which is why it's more pressure. But yeah, he says he can see that. The other thing I wanted to talk about today, and I don't know if you followed this at all, but this girl here behind me, is in the news again. Did you see this about the planes?
I saw this morning, I think, or maybe last night, I saw that headline. And I didn't think of. Then I saw your message or your I think your story you shared. I was, I forgot about. So I haven't read into it, but I mean, the basics I think I understand. But yeah, go ahead.
So essentially, remember it was maybe I forget exactly how long ago, but it was like definitely long ago to be in the past.
Like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, where there was a kid, a high school kid, who was tracking Elon Musk's jet, and it was just public data. Like all the public flight data, and he just had a Twitter account that was tracking Elon Musk's jet. And I think he was doing it for a couple other big names. And Elon said, "This is a threat to my life that this kid is tracking my jet," and he sued the kid. And the kid eventually stopped. Or I actually think he ended up deactivating his Twitter account or something. Elon personally suspended the account, and it's like that was done when that happened. Everyone on our side of the aisle was like, high school kid good, Elon bad. For obvious reasons, he's doing nothing illegal. He's just sharing public information about an activity which is actively very harmful to the environment, and it directly impacts and harms every single American and person in the world, to be fair. And now Taylor Swift is the new target for this individual. He's in college now. He's been tracking Taylor Swift's private jets, and Taylor Swift became a billionaire this year. She's probably one of the most ethical billionaires that we have. Like she does a lot of good things. She does a lot of she fights the bigger billionaires a lot, and she's made $1 billion doing that. At least in the music industry. And if you're going to make $1 billion one way, selling music and concerts ain't the worst way. I'm unaware of any product lines she has that are particularly bad. It's not the worst. But at the same time, she's a fucking billionaire. And she's taking this private jet all around the world. And people are coming out defending her for this. And it doesn't make sense. They're like, oh, it's for her safety. She traveled commercial.
Get the fuck out of here.
And it's like, she doesn't need to be doing all these concerts. She's a fucking billionaire. Why does she need so many concerts that she needs to fly? Why can't she, if she needs to fly private for her safety, okay, cool. She can fly private for her safety and then rent out a train car. When she's traveling through Europe, for her safety. She does not need to be taking a private. I saw a private jet flight. It was a 13-minute fucking flight. She doesn't need to be doing this. She doesn't need to be traveling from Japan to the Super Bowl. That's for her own pleasure, and she's doing it, and it's creating a bigger footprint than any normal person will ever have in their lives. Every single time she does it, and so I'm all for defending Taylor Swift against the whole fucking backlash in the NFL from dumb conservatives. All for that. I have been doing that. But if you're going to tell me that I shouldn't criticize her for doing the same exact thing that Elon Musk did that I criticized him for, and threatening a lawsuit against a fucking college student, what are we talking about here, TJ? This is really bad rooting for the laundry. And I know we're talking about Swifties and they're just going to be irrational, but there's otherwise rational people making these arguments.
Yeah, so that's where I was going to get is that the only thing I saw about this was a headline, like I said last night, and then the story. I haven't seen any articles or any posts about it. And I'd like to know who is criticizing this, because I have a hard time imagining lefties would criticize this. I feel like our community would be, hey, yeah. In fact, I hear a lot of lefties, you bring up Taylor Swift and they'll mention, what she has to say about Gaza. Yeah, all right, got him there. I haven't heard her say a word about that. She's a lib, and but the thing, I didn't read the articles or hear her excuses for why she has to fly private. You do not need to fly on a private jet for your safety. I'm sorry, that's absurd. Celebrities fly on planes all the time. You can fly first class. You can separate yourself from the rabble. You can have a security detail. You're going to be fine. Tell me the last person who was murdered on an airplane. I mean, come on, it's fine, but. Yeah, that is crazy about people defending Taylor Swift. And what I want to know is, what is she suing him for? Because I remember Elon Musk, because you mentioned how he said this was a threat to his safety, this publicly available data. And he said that his actual line was, this kid is handing out assassination
coordinates.
Right,
the assassination coordinates.
I was like, the
airport. Thank you. I've been trying to remember that all day, TJ. Thank you so much.
Yeah, get the hell out of here. So yeah, I'm sorry. That in that case, every flight, every single flight recorded in the United States are giving you assassination coordinates. Like that doesn't make any sense. So like that's obviously BS. I'm really curious to know what her lawsuit could possibly be because the information is available publicly. I don't know. That's wild.
And it's like, oh, this publicly available information about your private flight is giving assassination coordinates. Gee, that would be a really good reason to not do a private jet now, wouldn't it? Like, it's not the fucking Twitter account. It's already public. Any trained assassin that's trying to do a hit on fucking Elon Musk or Taylor Swift, they can do that either way. Like they aren't being convinced to kill Taylor Swift because some dude tweeted the location of her private jet flight when her
insanity
with her security detail on it.
Yeah, I know, right? Absolute insanity. Every flight itinerary is just a way to come knock people off. That's nonsense.
And I want to speak to the lib mindset here because you're right. Like this is not a big deal. Like fuck it. As I said, like I'm not too concerned about this. It's a billionaire, a music superstar who's using a private jet to go to concerts mostly. Like things that move the needle for me, this is not. And as I said, if I'm gonna recruit any of the billionaires to be on our side in the class war, there's the least not the I guess the greatest non-zero chance that Taylor Swift would be the one. But like, Jesus, the lib mindset here is so apparent because they're literally like, oh well, she needs this to like give concerts to her fans, and it's like. Do you understand? Like, I want to like just sit them down and ask them to go through the implications of that thought process. Because if you're her fan and you want the concert, right? And that means you think she needs to travel around the world to all of these locations in a private jet, causing untold damage to the environment. That's you. Like, you're complicit in this. like you are like wanting the environment to be damaged in order for Taylor Swift to give concerts. And that's dumb. Like that's incredibly selfish and dumb, but it's such a liberal mindset. It's like, oh, well, it's not me. It's just what happens. It's just that's what movie stars do, and I'm sorry, artists do. And it's like, have you questioned that maybe the system that allows that is wrong? Maybe like for a second.
I mean, to be fair, I hear she gives one hell of a concert. So, I mean, raising the Earth's temperature may actually be worth it. I think really what it comes down to is that look, we know this just from, being content creators. Climate change videos do not get a lot of attention because it's the most important topic in the world, but it's a pretty boring one to talk about because, the human brain, it's hard to scale out, not only that far ahead, but that far backward. And your experience is like Republicans always say, well, weather changes all the time. That's how most people see this. And hey, the weather is going to raise by 1 degree Celsius. That doesn't sound like a lot. Mm-hmm. In a regular day, I don't even know what that is. Is that 2, normal degrees? I don't know what it is. But, whenever that happens, it has this catastrophic effect on the globe. We can't think in systems that large. Like we don't understand it. So yeah, a lot of people just don't care, lib or otherwise. It's like, oh, well, you're telling me that one lady on a plane is going to destroy the planet. It's not going to, register for a lot of people. So I think that's what it comes down to. I wrote something down real quick before I forget.
Yeah.
You talk about the most ethical ways to make $1 billion. I've always said that authors, I think, and which is why, ironically, like J.K. Rowling is one of the most ethical billionaires I know.
I have to unfortunately agree with that.
Right?
Is she a monster? Sure, but it's not for the reasons she made $1 billion.
It's like when I think about ways to make $1 billion that are the least problematic, writing a story that a lot of people buy, hard to argue against that one.
Children to read, like it's a I mean, there's problems with the story, but like, come on, like.
Oh yeah, the subject matter.
We're not going to nitpick here. Like it's a fine book. like no one is being turned to Satan because of the book. Like it's. Is the views on the house elves maybe a little fucking slavey? Sure, but
the names that they use, the books or whatever, like the weird.
Are the goblins slightly anti-Semitic?
Yeah, anti-Semitic. Yeah, man. Like, so I didn't read Harry Potter books growing up. I never read any of them, but I was, somewhat familiar just through being in pop culture. The first time I watched the Harry Potter movie was only because this girl I was with wanted to watch like the sixth movie or something, and so I watched it, and I was kind of lost.
What kind of millennial are you?
I know, right? It's like the best one. The best one. It's like I don't spend all day talking about how I'm a Hufflepuff or something like that. It was really funny too because everyone would like name what houses they were from, and whenever that happens, like, oh, TJ, I was like, look, I have no clue what these houses mean. Apparently, I'm a Ravenclaw, whatever the hell that means, but that apparently that's what I am. But
that checks out. Checks out.
Okay, all right. So, but I was listening about Harry Potter. I don't remember now, but yeah, J.K. Rowling and writing books probably the best way to actually make all that money. So I want to throw that in before you moved on.
No, I think in general, if you can make art that makes $1 billion, I got no problem with you.
Right?
Like you didn't design the system for making that art. Like you didn't design any of this. You just made the art, and it happens to make you $1 billion. Now. What Taylor Swift does, which is a little bit different from what you're saying, is that like she does like a lot of it's coming from tours and stuff, which have an environmental impact, and there are trade-offs there. I'm not even saying it's necessarily unethical. I do think the amount is, but like there are benefits to those tours. They generate a bunch of economic activity. Like they are like they provide a value to people that people want to have. Like there is artistic value in and of itself to it. Like there's trade-offs. I wanted to ask Ethan, though, because he's like, cancel Taylor Swift for emissions. I can get behind this. So this is the reason I like talking about this is because it provides a very low barrier to entry for philosophical political discussions. And that's not something that you get too often. There's very few times you can engage a normie on a topic they care about that like you can talk about like class warfare and stuff like that. And this is one of them. And I find it interesting because I want to know the reasons that normie Republicans think they hate Taylor Swift. Because I feel...
Do normies hate her, though? It's like the chuds that I mean, I don't know if like you're...
So I would... So Ethan is giving us a knee-jerk anti-Taylor Swift reaction. And because he's saying, cancel Taylor Swift for emissions, I can get behind this. And I want to know, and I consider Ethan a relatively normie conservative. If he's still watching, Ethan, I would love to get your take on this. But I can't imagine her politics for the normie conservative are too egregious. She generally is an LGBT person, like very strong LGBT rights, which like
that's a pretty big one.
But like
for a lot of
the normie like centrist Republican who isn't online, doesn't really follow this shit, they're mostly of the I really don't give a shit mindset. They'll get annoyed if you talk about it too much, but like they don't really care. They're not going to hate you for like saying I care about LGBT people, and like she's in your face about it. I really only see the teen girls like this, and so my traditional conservative values like shouldn't like this. Like I don't see the jump that's being made, and I imagine they're not thinking about it too hard. But like if you don't like her music, it's annoying pop music, teenage girls like her, people who annoy you like her, therefore you don't like her. And I feel like that's the normie conservative Republican reaction. Do you think I'm wrong about that?
No, I think that's probably most, because like you said, it's going to be mostly dudes. Like, you're not going to have a lot of women conservatives that are, like, rage against Taylor Swift, but it's probably from dudes who don't like her music, and their girlfriends do, and it drives them crazy, and they're annoyed. You know what it reminds me of? It's like another version of Justin Bieber hate. For the life of me, I could not figure out why I was like standing next to a 25-year-old man who was just seething in rage at this 14-year-old boy making music. I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, all right, no one is forcing you to like Justin Bieber. Like, I get if you don't. In fact, it was probably 10 years before I heard the first Justin Bieber song I liked, which was Love Yourself. That was a great song. I loved it. But the rest of them...
Great song.
San Francisco, that was all right. But I didn't like baby.
That's the one. That's the one. See, this. I was just about to jump in with that, TJ. I will.
That's not. Well, I mean,
agree with you on every point. But back when Baby came out, it was when the radio was still popular. You didn't have Spotify yet, and it was always playing, and it's the most annoying song with the most annoying voice. And I get it. I actually get hating him for that specifically.
No, what? Okay, so you don't like the song. Yeah, I get that. I don't like it either. But it's like, oh, now this 14-year-old child I'm going to talk shit about and dunk on him. And
that's
it's like,
too much.
Okay, you just don't like the song. You can relax. And that, I don't get it. For the life of me, I don't understand how you would personally hate someone, a child for that matter. It's not like that. It was just like, it was so weird to me.
I get being with your buddies and shitting on it because it just annoys you and you're letting out the steam. But actually getting personally upset at the human is dumb. Like it is, and that's dumb as shit.
And that's what's happening with this Taylor Swift thing. Like I think it is because like these guys didn't like Taylor Swift 5 years ago either. They probably had similar feelings, and now they found another reason to pile on someone they don't like. And you know, these guys are just, you know, beer drinking chads, you know, and they don't care. And so oh, she likes Biden too. Well, figures. I mean, that's all it really comes down to. They have like and she's invaded their space. Like there's a no girls allowed sign on the NFL, and now Taylor is walking in and ruining it all. So yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to.
I think that's fair. I like Taylor's music, and so I've never gotten it. I think she actually makes great music for a lot of people, but I get the general reaction. I also think there's a hint of betrayal because like coming out of the gate, she was this young, pretty blonde.
Country music
pop star. Like you could see how that's like conservative coded, and if she came out again, it makes sense she's a lib and not a fucking leftist, but like if she was a relatively conservative person who just like, I could see her being a fiscal conservative, socially liberal type of person. But like it's a betrayal for them. Like that's from Nashville, yada yada yada. She's not from Nashville. She's from Pennsylvania. She babysat one of my friends, but she moved to Nashville. But yeah, I get it. I'm interested to see how much playtime this has because like she's huge. She's a megastar right now. But how long can they stay angry at her and keep driving the news with it?
I think they're going to stay mad at her. I just think there's going to be fewer and fewer opportunities because the NFL season ends, you know, in a week. And that's probably she's going to be on TV less and less, and they'll forget all about it. And then, you know, she may come out and endorse Biden, whatever. They'll throw a fit for 3 weeks, and then it'll all be – which is also how you know this, like, their insane idea that this is some sort of CIA op. That she's going to endorse Biden in February, like that's their master plan. 10 months before the election, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I wanted to ask. See, I don't like Taylor Swift's music. I've never been now. I like a lot more of her music than Justin Bieber's. I can probably think of 3 or 4 songs. I really love Style.
Okay, interesting.
That song is great. Like that song is amazing. I've always loved that song, but most of it I'm not too much into. But I get why people are. I mean, I understand it. It's not like I was like, okay, I can't understand why people, you know, like this artist. But yeah, I think it's all right. But once again, not liking her music has never translated to, you know, disliking her as a person. You know, it's funny when it's the opposite because that happens a lot more often. When I love someone's music, but I can't stand the individual at all for a lot of reasons. So it's kind of refreshing whenever there's someone that I don't have a lot of personal problems with, but
Kanye West.
Don't like the music. Okay, it's a lot cooler. You
know? Every time I listen to Kanye West, which I do all the time, I'm just like, God damn it.
Listen, there's a guy I've been trying to get on the show for a while now.
Kanye?
Kanye?
Yo, Kanye, if you're listening right now, we'll have you on the show.
Kanye, come on the show, man.
We'll have you and Nick Fuentes on together.
New girlfriend you have, like, it's just as weird as you. But anyway, he goes by Super Solid LLC on TikTok, and I've been trying to get on the show for a while now. We've done a couple of lives together, and I was talking to him about this very issue. And I've always loved Kanye's music. I still do. I love it. And he's always been a weirdo. He's always been strange, but I've always defended his musical talent, and I still will to this day. And I was like, when he came out with like all this shit last year, like, oh God, man, like I'm not going to go through the trouble of trying to defend Kanye, but if you think I'm going to stop listening to All of the Lights whenever I'm on the treadmill, you're dead wrong. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm sorry. Like,
it's so good.
And a lot of people would like, because we were talking about boycotting Kanye's music, and I'm like, what's the point? Like, why? I mean, it's like are people boycotting Michael Jackson's music? I mean, you're telling me that guy hasn't done some fucked up shit? It's like I'm not gonna. And look, if you want to, fine. I'm not gonna, be upset at you about it. But I ain't doing that shit. Like I'm not saying my listening to Thriller doesn't mean I support what Michael Jackson did. I just happen to like the song.
I was listening just as the other day, Jesus Walks came on, and I was just like, this is genuinely so much better than
Which song came on?
Jesus Walks.
Oh, Jesus Walks.
And I was
that's
like,
a good one.
the production on this is so much better than any rap music coming out now. And it's just like, how did just like no one ever figure this out? Like it is so good. And
have you seen? How Kanye? I think I talked about this on the last show we did about how Kanye. He uses the human voice as an instrument. He does that with Jesus Walks a lot. Yeah. And it's like, I can see why other people haven't thought about it. I wouldn't have thought about that. Like I
wouldn't have thought about it. But you think in the 2 decades that followed, there'd be another artist who could replicate the style to a similar degree.
Oh, I see.
And I know people talk about what's his name, Travis Scott. I just hate that genre of music. And maybe he is. I can't speak to it. It's like the one genre of music that I just have never found enjoyable. I have eclectic music tastes, like crazy. I just like anything that's good. So like I've never really cared.
But not Travis Scott.
But not
that guy.
There's a couple of Travis Scott songs like okay, I can get to that. I just don't like trap house music. It's just there's some exceptions. I just don't get it. I don't get it.
I want to talk about Travis Scott real quick.
Yeah.
But before I do, with Kanye West, I was going to say, man,
this has become a music podcast.
I know, right? Hey, this is what Wednesdays are for, man.
Exactly.
It was like Jesus Walks and, the first time I heard Kanye West, it was like, I don't know, 2004, maybe 2003. I don't know when he came out, but it was somewhere around that time because I was in college. And I remember hearing this song on the radio. Like it just came up and I couldn't stop listening to it. And it sounded like 50 Cent was trying to impersonate someone else. And I was like, who is this? Like what is I couldn't figure out who it was. And then I saw that it was some guy named Kanye West. I was like, oh, okay. I thought it was Kane, not Kanye, because like that's a name you would see. And he actually has a line about that in Diamonds from Sierra Leone, where he says, all y'all can't spell my name, but my name's Kanye, some of my plastic still says Kane. I thought, that's funny because I would have done the same thing. But the song was Through the Wire. And then I found out why it sounded so funny, because his mouth was wired shut when he sang the song. I was like, are you shitting me? He sang this song
awesome.
through his teeth. Say what?
Through a wire.
Through the wire. It was literally Through the Wire. And Through the Wire, the sample is from Shaka Khan's Through the Fire. So the song is just great. It's still one of my favorite songs to this day. But when I heard that, I was like, all right, this dude, who I'm going to keep my eye on him because he's got some talent, and he really does. And I know that, all like really talented people are a little bit crazy. You kind of have to be to think outside the box that way. But oh boy, we didn't know he was that crazy. We didn't it's just is way worse than we thought. And Travis Scott, I don't know much about Travis Scott, but I do know that Travis Scott is not his real name. That Travis Scott is his stage name, which is very funny whenever people pick stage names that sound like regular names. Like if you're gonna pick a stage name, make it a cool one. Like his real name is Jacques Webster. And I was like, look, I get why you wouldn't want Jacques Webster to be your hip hop name, but bro, Travis Scott, I'm gonna assume that's your real name. Like I'm always I think it's funny.
I agree. I would have assumed that Travis Scott was his real name.
Why wouldn't you? Right?
It is weird. Pick something fun. Like, who's the guy? I don't even know. I don't even know any of the details of this story. I just saw the headline at the Grammys. Someone like won an award, and then was immediately arrested.
Oh, Killer Mike.
And I was like, I know nothing of this situation. I'm going to trust that the cops are assholes here. But that being said, you did call yourself Killer Mike.
Killer Mike.
Like that, it's a little bit shame on you. Again, I have no idea what the details are. It's just that headline that read very funny to me.
He got into a fight before the show started, apparently. Like him and another guy got into a fight. So it was probably like a minor altercation or whatever. But Killer Mike's a big dude too, which is funny. Yeah. He's a really big guy. You remember Tekashi 6ix9ine?
Yeah.
When he got arrested, man, it was a long time ago. Like 3-4 years ago, probably.
He had a whole that was a bad one, right? Like he had
child
trafficking or something.
But there's a song that he released like the year before, and it's like the chorus. It goes, "Whole squad full of fucking killers. I'm a killer too." And I'm like, "Well, buddy, when you say that, what do you expect? Like, well, come on, like they're gonna have some eyeballs on you. That's just pretty funny shit."
There are people who definitely like put on a performance, like what's a good example? I can't think of anyone in music, but like Colby Covington, if you're a UFC guy, like he puts on this like MAGA asshole like character, but everyone.
Oh, it's a character.
Oh, it's a character. Like if you hear like fighters, like other people who talk to him, they're always like, he's the nicest guy. Like, and I believe it, because that happens a lot.
Wow, what a character to pick! Holy shit.
Well, so the whole story behind that was he was kind of like middling in the rankings. He didn't have a definitive like style. He was just kind of all around talented, but like he couldn't get booked to like move up on the rankings. And he kept trying, and his fights kept going to decisions. He wasn't a knockout guy, so like Dana was just like, well, I'm not going to book you. And he was like, okay, I'm going to go all the way far right. He's probably a conservative, but probably not like
what you'd have to be to do something like that. There's no
exactly. But he was like, everyone's swinging this way. I'm gonna go this way, and massive controversy. He got booked. He's had title shots. Like it worked. And I can't hate the grind if you are being fake and you know it. Like if you drink the Kool-Aid, there's people drink the Kool-Aid too much and become the persona, and that's bad. But if you know consciously you're not the persona, I got no problem with you.
Well, like Tupac, that was a persona. Like he was a nerd. You ever see like videos of Tupac when he's like 16, 17 years old? He's like Steve Urkel, man. I mean, like his hair is all goofy. He's got this like wispy mustache. There's this interview where he's talking about how he has a hard time dating girls, and the last time he was out with a girl, she said that she was like, and she told me I was too nice. Can you believe that? She said I was too nice. What's going on? He was just perplexed and shit. And it wasn't until what was that movie he was in? Shit, I should know the name of this movie, but where he played like this hard ass, and he became the hard ass, at least publicly. That's how he presented himself. And it worked. I mean, it was a great persona he had. He went to like a fancy art school with Jada Pinkett. The guy went to. So yeah, that was persona too. Larry the Cable Guy. That's a persona. He doesn't sound like that at all. So yeah, there's no problem with being like a character. That's a lot of people do that. That's cool. But Jesus, that character, yikes! That's just, but like you said, it worked. I mean, he's after the grind, I guess.
Not only did it work, and since we're just jumping from random pop culture, slightly political topics to another, we have like 10 minutes, by the way, before our hour's up. So if you have another topic, let's get it in. But I did want to say, he zigged that way. And the entire UFC zigged with him. Like like Trump shows up to fucking fights and gets pay-per-view time, and like it is in fucking, and it makes sense. It all makes sense.
It does.
It lines up top to bottom.
Yeah,
but it's
not surprising at all.
Genuinely is insane to me how much I know that's the core audience of that demographic, but like how much they lean into it and how they could be the only organization that could successfully pull that off. And it is kind of cool. In a meta sense, as much as I hate it, but at least like we know who the bad guys are. That's the greatest thing Donald Trump ever did. He let us know. He gave everyone a nice little red hat to signal who the idiots are.
And yeah, like you said, like it's not surprising at all because a lot of them are. It's like you ever hang out with a lot of weightlifters? Like you go to the gym, you lift weights. It's a bunch of just MAGA right-wing guys. And like it's years ago, I got a personal trainer. It's actually when I moved out to Indiana. And so in the Army, you do PT every single morning. But when I came out here for recruiting duty, you do PT on your own, and I ain't doing it on my own. That shit is not. I'm not getting up at 5 in the morning and making myself run. That's not going to happen. So I went out and got a personal trainer who I paid to make me get up at 5 in the morning and everything. But I was so pleasantly surprised to find out that my trainer, this guy who had 50 pounds of muscle in one arm, was like just as lefty as me. I was like, holy shit. And that's pretty rare. That's pretty rare. So when you get around muscle heads and stuff, like guys who thrive off, testosterone and dominance and shit, it's rare that they're going to be lefties. That's just not going to happen. So, you have guys like this UFC shit. Of course, there are going to be a lot of right wingers. It's, I don't know. It's sad, but it's true. It's not surprising.
So I have two things to say about that. One, you're definitely right. It like the musclehead, like lifting, personal training sort of guy. That's definitely a conservative more often than not. And I feel like it's because in order to do that sort of thing, you have to be incredibly brainwashed. And I say that because it's usually not good for you. Like usually when they pass a certain point, it's no longer healthy. It's no longer good for anything. You're just you've bought into this mindset of personal improvement and constantly increasing your gains, and you're susceptible to that, and so you're probably also susceptible to a lot of conservative talking points, and I think that's what kind of happens there, plus the culture in general just invites that. Hello, nice to see you, Hallow. We're talking about the types of people that tend to be conservatives and liberals and leftists, and we're talking about how the powerlifting, the fitness community tends to be conservative. And I will say, as a member of the combat sports community, it's actually really funny because there is a massive philosophical divide in combat sports in general, because there are two types of people. There's the types of people that go into a gym and they get their ass kicked. And there's two responses to that. One, oh, I got my ass kicked. Everyone gets their ass kicked. Everyone here is helping each other. That's awesome. It's a very communal activity, and the gyms that are like that tend to have a very gym-wide philosophy. And then there's gyms that are hyper-individualistic, hyper-competitive. You can tell as soon as you walk into one, and they all love that kind of guy. Now, there's different types of guy in both, but it's really funny because when you bring these groups together, it creates a lot of conflict. And that's why the Colby Covington character worked so well.
Yeah.
Is because a lot of people get very philosophical about martial arts for obvious reasons. And so you have a lot of really strong leftists and progressives in the martial arts community that it just irks them. And then you have your standard UFC person who doesn't actually fight but wants to be a tough guy. That is totally a conservative, and it really is fun. What combat sport do you do? Hallow, I do jiu-jitsu. I'm a blue belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I've wrestled my whole life. So I've been around. I've been around them for a long time. But and Hal asked what he missed. He got school, so he came late. We'll keep chatting for a little bit here for you, Hallow, because we appreciate you coming on. But TJ, what's been irking you recently? Since we've kind of talked about a lot of my irks today.
Well, I wanted to tag along with the combat sport thing. Is that so? What I think, the weightlifting thing first, is that the weightlifting was why these guys tend to be right leaning, and I thought it would go more into the combat thing too, because you see a lot. I saw in the Army, but people who are strong and healthy don't tend to think about people who aren't strong and healthy all that often. And if they do, they think of them as lesser and undeserving anyway. And so it's why you don't see a lot of, handicapped libertarians. You don't see that a lot, or minorities or women. It's usually healthy, young white men. It's oh yeah, I got the world, by the tail. I can do whatever I want. Those guys tend to be more right leaning. And so when you have, professions like, cops or soldiers or personal trainers, they're very individualistic and very physically able-bodied and healthy, and so they think, oh yeah, I don't need anybody's help, I can do this shit on my own. And when it came, I was surprised to hear that there's I know that it's very philosophical with the jujitsu and stuff and everything because it kind of has to be for it to make sense. I am surprised to hear that there's like entire like dojos where people are like, oh yeah, you get your ass kicked. That's part of the deal. Like that's bewildering to me.
Oh yeah,
that's very surprising.
I mean that's what I tell to all like the people who come in our gym. I'm just like, look, you're gonna get your ass kicked over and over and over again. Everyone who's kicking your ass started in the same spot, and you're just gonna have to learn through it. And that is the hard part. The hardest belt to earn, I always says, hardest belt to earn is your white belt. Because you got to walk in the door. And 99% of humans never do that. So congratulations, you made a big step. Now the second hardest part is getting through these first 6 months where you are going to suck and get your ass kicked every single day. And maybe 6 months from now, a couple new white belts will walk through the door and you're going to love kicking their ass just like you got your ass kicked. And you just got to make it there. And that's what I tell them, but you have gyms that like, I don't know, the gyms that attract the other kind tend to be, they're going to be attracting the athletes. Like, and I was an athlete, but I'm not like, super, I'm not John Jones over here, but like, they're going to be attracting the people who, like myself, had wrestling experience, D1 athletes, whatever, who are going to be able to walk in and just kick people's ass. And that tends to be how that goes, because at a certain extent, you have to be insane to do what I do. You have to be insane to go into a gym, have a stranger choke you out, and just trust that they're not going to kill you. And you have to be extra insane if you're doing that in a striking sport, where you just lock yourself in a cage and get the shit, potentially just like ruin your life. And just do that for fun. And there has to be a certain level of overconfidence in your abilities to even be able to do that. And it can lead to delusion being helpful in the sport. It can also lead to, but you can also go the exact opposite route and be like, full embrace of your humility can also be the Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is actually a great example, where like Bruce Lee, he puts on this very aggressive, egotistical persona, but if you look at his philosophy, it's leftist as fucking shit. Be water, my friend.
Be water, my friend. Exactly. Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah.
So like that, I think that's a good example. Hal is saying he totally agrees, especially with soldiers. Hal, if you ever, I don't know how often you listen to us, but TJ does a bunch of stuff talking. We always talk about like, it's shocking how many of our guests are military veterans.
Way overrepresented.
Genuinely shocking, and I think it's a little bit of selection bias, or like, would you disagree with this? Like, most of the community is pretty conservative, but like the ones who aren't, it's really a core part of their personality, because like, how can you not be?
So the community is generally conservative, but not as much as you'd think.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably like 60-40. Like, it's actually pretty close. Like, you would guess it'd be like 70-30, maybe 75-25, but no, there is a solid chunk of at least liberals. And the higher rank you get, the more liberal it gets too. Like, everything. So like everything else, but because you need more education to get higher ranks. But, and also like, I think it's 30% of the military. No, maybe it's 15% of the military is black. No, maybe it is. Hold on, I'll find out. Let me see. It's bigger than the. Let me see. All right, I can do math on this. 20% of the Army is black, and 20% of the Guard. Yeah, so it's almost double the population percentage-wise as far as the United States. So there's a lot more minorities represented in the military than there are in the general population, which does skew, more blue than red. So it's more than you guess. But for the most part, people who are, one, willing to join the military, and two, have that kind of thoughts about themselves and don't mind shooting a rifle and getting paid for it. Yeah, that's going to skew a little bit more right than it would left anyway.
Yeah, makes sense. I have one question for you, just kind of that popped in my brain while we were discussing this, like the politics of different circles and the way that people operate inside them. And I'm interested to hear your experience with this, because I could see it going different ways for reasons that should probably be pretty apparent as soon as I say it. But I code as conservative. Like if you see me walking around, a lot of people would assume, if they are judging me by my appearance, that I might be a conservative. I often wear plaid. I often wear boots. I'm a white guy. I talk the way that a lot of conservatives do just because I was raised in a relatively conservative area. And so oftentimes, if I'm in a hyper-conservative place, such as a conservative jiu-jitsu gym or a networking event for, business professionals, they just assume
Bass Pro Shop.
If I'm in a Bass Pro Shop, I don't know why I would be, but if I don't know, had to pick up some bait for the fishing I don't do. But like if I'm in one of those areas, I'm just automatically assumed to be conservative.
Yeah.
They just talk to me and say the wildest fucking shit, and I'm just like, I can't believe you just said that to a relative stranger whose politics you don't know.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you experience that, because I imagine you probably mask pretty darn well in those environments, given that you're a content creator and masking is part of our job. But you're also black, and I wonder if that codes differently to them. I don't know if you experience that.
So it's kind of hard to say.
Because like they might assume you're Army. They might assume, you know what I mean?
So that's where I was going to go with this, is that whenever you have the uniform on, a lot of people will assume you're conservative. Mm-hmm. And that happened a lot. Well, the first thing they'll do is assume you're their friend, which I can't stand. I could, if you ask anyone in the military, the thing that really, I don't want to say it the wrong way, but it's going to come out that way, is that we actually don't need everyone to come up and say thank you for us. Like we don't need that. Like I know everyone's told that they don't hear enough. Yes, they do. Trust me, they hear every time they're out in public in uniform. They'll hear it 10, 12 times a day. Mm-hmm. And look, we know that they're just trying to be polite. So no one's like, what when you say thank you, I appreciate it and everything. That's the first thing. But the second thing is that people go too far. It's kind of like, you ever, so I remember that I went over to a friend's house for a party that they were having. And on their Instagram, they had this little dog, this cute little dog. And I've known, these people for a while. And I always see pictures of their adorable little dog. Oh, that's a cute dog and everything. And I went over to the house after like a year, and I immediately walked up to the dog, and the dog like backed away and snapped at me. I was like, oh, that's right. Like, I feel like I know this dog, but this dog's never met me. Uh-huh. That's how it was like. People would come up to me like, oh, it's an American soldier. And they like, put their hand on my shoulder and stuff. So I was like, look, we're not friends here. Stop that. That happened a lot, and that bothered me. But third thing is that sometimes they would say like the wildest conservative shit. Mm-hmm. I remember once I was just, at a Target or something. And then this lady's like, oh, hey, thanks, talking and everything, just making small talk. She's like, I tell you what, that stuff going on with Kaepernick really bothers me. And I'm like, I said, why?
Oh God! Like, the color just drained from the lack of color just drained from her face.
Yes, mortified. And I was like, why? And she's like, oh, it's. She did not expect the why. That's the last thing she expected. And I was like, look, I don't care. I mean, look, he wants to kneel, he can kneel. What does it matter? And like, she really didn't say much afterward. So yeah, sometimes that did happen.
It's like when you ask a fat woman if they're pregnant. It's like,
that's like, and this would happen every now and again. And it was bad when I was on recruiting duty, because technically you're not supposed to talk about politics at all in uniform, but especially when you're on recruiting duty, because you're supposed to be making friends and everything. I had to bite my tongue so many times. I just listened to people talking, but I can ask why. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, that would happen a lot in uniform. Now, outside of uniform, I don't get a lot of talk about politics unprompted. That doesn't really happen. Well, from black people, but from white people, that almost never happens. I think that, they're all a little gun shy when it comes to that sense. So yeah, but yeah.
I imagine if you spent time in, like, I don't know, if you were a salesman, they would probably assume you're their black friend and just count you as one of them, because you would probably never say shit to the contrary. But maybe you would. I don't know. But I know when I was in those environments, I never did. I want to wrap up here, and Hallow asked a good question, and I think we can wrap with this. But he said, and this can be for the both of us, but I think it's especially for you. And he said, no disrespect, but what do you think about people who join the military at this time, knowing all of the bad shit that America does? What are your feelings? And I know your feelings. We've talked about this, but for we've approached the topic before. I could probably guess what you're going to say before you do.
I don't go out of my way to hold any ill will towards anyone who does that, because we often make the mistake that people know as much as we do. And they don't. They don't. Like, your average person who wants to just join the military is just looking for a job. That's true. Like, you know what I mean? And I did it. And I didn't consider myself like a monster or anything at the time. I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do it. I thought I was signing up for the right reason, which is why most of them, they think, okay, I'm going to be doing this to, help out the country. That sentiment is probably a lot less these days, but, a lot, it is hard to talk about, because there are two realities here. And the one reality is that, the United States military doesn't defend freedom for anybody at all. It is simply the muscle arm of multinational corporations. That's what it is. And it was this dark day when I figured that out. And a lot of people in the military do. But most Americans, like 70-75%, don't see it that way. They see it as a good and noble organization that does occasionally have bad apples, or they're sent on bad missions, but they're overall good people trying to do the right thing. That's how most people are going to see it. They're not going to see it the same way we do. So I'm not going to, automatically cast aspersions on them as like, oh, well, a lot of these folks, they don't have any other. It's going to sound like I'm defending it, but I'm just explaining it more. That's why it's more explaining anything, is that a lot of individuals that join the military, I wasn't one of them, so I can't use this, but they look around, they see that their family, their friends, their loved ones, all of them have dead-end jobs going nowhere. They have no hope of going to college. They have no hope of getting out. And they know one dude who was in the military, and he served 3 years, and he had his food and his rent and everything paid for. He got $80,000 to go to college. He got a $25,000 signing bonus. I'm going to do this for 3 years and try to get some sort of basis for my life. And that's how they're viewing it. And it doesn't excuse any of the, the atrocities or the awful things that happen while you're in the military, or that you do while you're in the military. Not at all. But I think it's important to view it how they're viewing it, instead of thinking that everyone knows as much as we do and is as knowledgeable about the world and how it works, because a lot, especially when you're 17, 18 years old, you have no idea. That's I don't know if that's what you thought I was going to say, John, but that's where I was going with it.
That's what I thought you were going to say, because you've said this about cops before, essentially.
Cops,
you've said the same thing, and we've like I don't even have to add anything to what you just said. I can just say touche, because that's exactly how I view it. You have to look at it from their perspective and not your own. If you judge someone by your own perspective. Okay, cool. So Hallow said damn live ended, but he's back now, so I'm glad he heard the answer. And by the way, your buddy Miho says this guy bites his tongue and starts recruiting quotas and shatters recruiting quotas. That should tell you something about his BSing ability.
Okay. All right. Okay. Listen. I do get questions about there once, because I was a recruiter for the Army. And
that's not to say that I hold things against you, but that's one of those ones where I'm just like, you were a recruiter for the Army.
So here we go. All right, now once again, you guys can believe me or not, and this isn't to I don't believe in absolution or anything, but I am telling you the truth. Like, this is exactly how my recruiting philosophy works. So when you go to recruiting school in the Army in Fort Knox, is where the recruiting school is. They sit you down in a room full of 80 other people, and they give you this course. And the Army recruiting school course is a sales course. They sit you down and they say, okay, here you go. This is how it's going to work. You're going to get to your office. You're going to be given 3 or 4 schools. You have to go to that school every lunch period. You're going to have, this list of names. You're going to do cold calls. It's sales shit over and over again. And so you're going to talk to people. They're going to say no. You're going to try to push past the no. You're going to use techniques. Oh, John, I'm sure you heard them, like feel, felt, found. I'm sure stuff like that.
You code as a salesperson, and this explains a lot.
Yeah. Well, actually, so I'm going to twist here. Because I never treated it like sales. I never did. I refused to, because there are a few reasons for that. One, I didn't feel comfortable with that. Like, I don't feel comfortable selling the Army to somebody. I'm not going to talk someone into a job that could get them killed. Like, morally, even back then, I didn't feel good about that. And second, you don't have to sell the Army. Like that's what I figured out, and I was a great recruiter. And it's not because like most good recruiters, they did exactly what they teach you in the school, is where you call through these lists, you go knock on doors, talk to people. No, it's listen. There are more than enough people out there that want to join the Army. It sells itself. You either want to join the Army or you don't. So if I asked someone if they want to join the Army and they said no, I was like, all right, thanks. I never pushed, I never did that shit. And I would work with the people who wanted to, because there are plenty of people who want to, they just can't. I think I've told plenty of times that the practice test for the Army, the people who wanted to join, 70% couldn't pass that test. And I would sometimes work with them, and I didn't have a lot of success. But yeah, I never was like a pushy recruiter to get. I mean, I don't have my recruits here to ask, but I never did that. I also never lied to my applicants, because it's actually hard to lie as a recruiter these days because the internet exists and people can just search or email and ask questions for it. But I lied to the Army all the time. All the time. And recruiters do it all the time, because what the Army wants is they want an 18-year-old high school senior who's never been sick, never been to the hospital, never got a speed, basically a perfect person. Like, and those people don't exist. And so, yeah, we all had to lie to the Army a lot whenever we could get away with it, but I never lied to my applicants. So yeah, I never really did the sales thing, but I was good at it, but I never pushed. And honestly, a lot of applicants I had were lefties and are still solid lefties. We all moved further and further left. One just got back from like a 4 or 5 year contract. He's back in town. I'm gonna go to lunch with him sometime. But yeah, that's how I did.
I think that this is a good example of, I don't know, the thing that I always want to talk about, but like it's really inside baseball. But there are certain people who will hear that you were an Army recruiter and go instantly, you're bad. You recruited for an evil organization, and not only did you do that, but you knowingly did that. And I don't. I understand where those people come from.
I do too. I'm actually not even mad at them.
Exactly.
I'm not.
But I know, and this is like I learned you were an Army recruiter long after I got to know your politics, and just like knowing you and talking with you about these things, I feel like we have a very similar process for arriving at our conclusions, which we don't get along because we have arrived at the same conclusions. We get along because we have a very similar process for arriving at conclusions.
Yeah.
And therefore, we happen to have arrived at a lot of the same ones. But like, I probably could have guessed everything that you just said. Like, and you've never said that to me before. But like, if I had written down, what is TJ about to say about being an Army recruiter? That's what I would have guessed, because I agree. Like, if you're already in the Army,
can't do anything about it.
Can't do anything about it. What is the least harm you can do? Well, if you're going and shooting a gun anywhere, you could be doing a lot of harm. You could be really ruining people's lives. If you're a recruiter, you can kind of like not sell the ones that are on the fence and you can tell don't really want to do it. And you can just help the ones that were going to get there anyway do what they were going to do.
But I will say, though, that wasn't my choice. They make you be. They make you check your email, and it's like, so what it is, like, there's like this pool they have for different, like, they're called broadening assignments. No, you can't join the Army to be a recruiter. Like, you get picked if you're of a certain age and a certain like test scores or whatever, and you pass the test. They're like, all right, this pool we're gonna pick recruiters out of. And so I got an email one day. Guess what? You're a recruiter. 85% of recruiters did not choose to be recruiters. You can sign up for it, and it's a really, like, most people hate it. Like, it is a terrible job because, like, they're on your back all the time. And, you signed up to, like, fucking fire cannons and an artillery. Like, you don't know anything about recruiting, and they just force you to do it. So it's a tough job, and most people hate it. But, yeah, I can't take credit for that. They told me to do it. Okay. So.
Fair. Yeah, I have no idea how this shit works. But, yeah, all of that checks out. Thank you, Halo, and Miho, and Ethan for joining us today, and any other viewers who hopped along and didn't comment. If you're still watching at this point, this is a replay for you. This is the end of the show, where I remind you, if you haven't subscribed, definitely do that, because we're going to be live every Wednesday at 6 o'clock, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to ask us what we think about